Under Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice has become just another cog in the Republican right-wing voter suppression machine. Welcome back to Democracy Docket. I'm Marc Elias.
And I'm Paige Moskowitz. Let's get started.
You know, Paige, it used to be we would talk about the Department of Justice, and sure, we might be complaining that it wasn't doing enough to protect voting. But on a whole, when it was doing what it was protecting voters. Well, no longer. Now the Department of Justice has turned into one big voter suppression operation. We saw them file a lawsuit in North Carolina in which they took up the Republican Party's theory to disenfranchise tens of thousands of voters after the RNC and its candidate was unable to steal an election there. And now they are targeting Wisconsin by sending them a warning letter of sorts saying that they may be violating federal law.
Last week, the Department of Justice issued a formal warning to Wisconsin saying that it was in violation of HAVA, the Help American Vote Act, by not providing voters with the required complaint process, basically allowing people to submit complaints about the election process. The DOJ said that if Wisconsin did not fix these alleged errors, they may withhold critical election funding from the state.
Yeah. And look, this is not a one-off. It's not like they just are otherwise doing the right thing and then sent this letter to Wisconsin. They sent a similar letter to Arizona, also targeting that state, saying that the state was not properly identifying the voter identities under HAVA, and warning of a lawsuit. And like I said, they've already filed a lawsuit on a slightly different topic, but not totally different topic, against the state of North Carolina, where they are, trying to, through the courts, frankly, just disenfranchise tens of thousands of voters going into the 2026 midterm elections when there will be critical elections on that ballot. I mean, the fact is that people need to recognize that whatever you may have thought the Department of Justice's role was, it is no longer its role. When it comes to voting, it believes its role is to make it harder to vote, sow disinformation and distrust in our election systems, and frankly, if I want to be honest about it, to do the bidding of the Republican Party. I mean, like, these are the same actions you are seeing that the Department of Justice is getting involved in now look eerily familiar to the kinds of things that we saw the RNC, that we've seen right-wing organizations that are anti-voting, some with connections to very prominent Republican and right-wing lawyers. We saw them do. So, this is a very dangerous time in democracy for a lot of different reasons. It's obviously very dangerous what Donald Trump is doing, but it's also dangerous what's happening to voting, because here's the thing, Paige. Donald Trump knows that the one thing that can upset his plan to be a dictator is if Democrats take control of Congress in 2026. The House is in play, the Senate's in play. There are lots of governorships in play. We'll see how Democratic governors right now are standing up to Donald Trump, and they don't want that. And so that's, I think, the reason why Pam Bondi, who is just a tool of Donald Trump, and Harmeet Dillon, who is, just totally on board with Donald Trump from start to finish, why they're up to this.
Marc, we also can't ignore the new acting chief of the voting rights section of the DOJ, Maureen Riordan. Prior to the DOJ, she worked at PILF, the Public Interest Legal Foundation, which is known for filing a variety of anti-voter lawsuits across the country. Democracy Docket is tracking many of them, and you can find them all on our website by clicking the link above or checking the video description below.
Yeah, and while you're at it, by the way, click the subscribe button on this video. We are building our YouTube channel to serve you. Okay. We do these videos because we want to make sure that for those of you who want to take in this content in this format, we are providing it to you on a timely basis, on a topical basis. So do me a favor, click on the subscribe button. Also click on the bell to make sure you are alerted when there is new YouTube video content available. All of that is completely free. Also, a perfect time to subscribe to Democracy Docket and get its free daily and weekly newsletters. And if you want a little bit more analysis and a little bit more frequent emails from me personally, then become a premium member and you can get that as well. So Paige, look, we see what the Department of Justice is up to. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that at the same time they're doing this, The Republican Party is trying to make it so that there cannot be private enforcement of a lot of our voting laws, right? So at the same time that DOJ is targeting states like Wisconsin, you've got uh, you've got Republicans in courthouses around America saying that only the Department of Justice can enforce, for example, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And this is a catastrophe waiting to happen. Like, it's bad enough that taxpayer money is being used to do this and not, for example, enforce Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. But Paige, if they get their way, and this is not hypothetical, like if they get their way, no one will be able to enforce the nation's voting rights laws because the only person who will be able to do it under the Republican theory is Pam Bondi and her group of cronies over at the Department of Justice. We know what they're up to.
Right. It would be a really dangerous situation for the state of voting rights in America. We talked about this before under the Biden administration. You know, the DOJ under Merrick Garland maybe not bringing as many voting rights lawsuits as they should. But we said at least, you know, these private organizations are bringing these lawsuits. Under Trump's DOJ, the theory would be that only the DOJ could bring those lawsuits. And oh, by the way, the DOJ isn't at all interested in bringing those lawsuits. And we know they're not interested in enforcing voting rights laws because one of the first things the DOJ did under the Trump administration was drop a bunch of lawsuits filed under the Biden administration to protect voting rights. We saw them withdraw from lawsuits in Texas, in Virginia, in Alabama. And that just shows this DOJ under Pam Bondi, under Harmeet Dillon, under Maureen Riordan, they're not interested in enforcing voting rights on behalf of voters. They're interested in bringing lawsuits that are kind of just bringing some pseudo legitimacy to Republican grievances about our elections.
Right. And it all starts with Donald Trump, right? I mean, like, if you want to talk about pseudo grievances about elections, like the big poster child for that is Donald Trump, who is an election denier, still denies the outcome of the 2020 election. Pam Bondi was a 2020 election denier, still is. And it is the one thing that is the through line of his entire administration. So when you see them doing stuff like what they're doing here in Wisconsin, when you see them doing what they're doing in North Carolina, when you hear that, you know, you have the RNC bringing challenges, one that they just lost that you and I reported on recently in Georgia, you know, where they wanted to give election deniers the opportunity to not certify elections. Like, this may all sound like a lot to all of you, but I promise you it's all connected. Like, it's not, these are not disconnected strands. Donald Trump wants the Department of Justice and the Republican National Committee and the dark money operation run by his allies to all focus on discrediting elections and creating, as Paige said, a grievance structure that allows them to say that they are always the victims. Even when they win, they're the victims. But when they lose, they're the victims. And to allow them to contest elections. Okay, there is a reason why the Republican Party was behind Jefferson Griffin, the candidate in North Carolina, who challenged his election loss for 5 months. Okay, it's no coincidence that happened under Donald Trump's presidency. It is no coincidence that the Department of Justice then filed a lawsuit that is very similar to his theory right after he conceded. And it is no coincidence that those same people at that same Department of Justice, who run by the same group of Trump sycophants, are now sending these letters to states like Wisconsin and Arizona, critical swing states, states where there are critical elections. And all of this is connected. It is all about trying to say that there are illegal voters out there, that people are voting who shouldn't be, that you can't trust the outcome, and that Donald Trump didn't lose in 2020. And I'm here to tell you that if we don't pay attention to this with the same level of detail as we're paying attention to all of the other problems that Donald Trump is creating right now. And believe me, I know how many problems Donald Trump is creating. I mean, Paige and I do videos about all kinds of problems that they're creating. If you read Democracy Docket, we have entire newsletters about the litigation against Donald Trump's attacks on democracy and DOJ and the courts. And so, yeah, we are attentive to all of it. But I'm telling you, if you're not paying attention to this part of it, this election part, then come 2026, you're going to wonder, well, how did we wind up here? So that's part of the reason why Paige and I do these videos. It's part of the reason why I hope you subscribe to Democracy Docket to get the full breadth of democracy coverage. And it's why I hope you click on the subscribe button for this video. Paige and I will stay on top of this, we promise. and we will see you next time.